And I'm back. It's a couple of days later. I finished the holes in the legs, and then I just needed to get hardware and dowels. It took me a couple of days to find the time to get to Home Depot to pick up dowels. I wasn't sure at first whether I was going to turn my own dowels or whether I was just going to buy pre-made ones. That decision became infinitely easier once I measured the bed of my lathe and found out I could not make a dowel long enough on my lathe. So that decision was easy. I bought all of the 1-inch dowels that Home Depot had. So if you are in my area and you went last night to Home Depot to buy dowels, you couldn't because I bought all of them, but sorry. I bought 8 hardwood dowels and 5 pine dowels. It was literally all they had. So I'll put the hardwood ones higher up on the Pikler Triangle. That way, if one of the pine ones does break, which shouldn't happen, this is only a small child climbing on this, so there shouldn't be any significant weight on it. But if it were to break, I want it as low down as possible. So the bottom rungs on each side will be made out of pine, and the top will be hardwood. I have the larger side dry fitted, and I think I like this as its final dimension. The dowels are all 36 inches long, so now I just need to cut the longer dowels that are not hardwood to 36 inches. I can then start finishing the wood. So I will hit everything with some sandpaper. I'll knock all the hard edges off. Since this is going to be children's furniture essentially, or a children's toy, I don't want any sharp edges on it anywhere. So I'll probably hit this with the 1/8 inch round over bit. I'll sand all the dowels. I'm going to hit all of them with the same stain. That way the differences in wood become a little bit less obvious. And then I'm going to coat it in at least 2 or 3 coats of water-based polyurethane to seal it. So yeah, let's cut down the 48-inch dowels. That way I can get this all put together, and then I can start figuring out what the folding mechanism will be. I have a stop block set a little bit below 12 inches. That way I get 12 inches on the right side of the blade when accounting for the kerf of the saw blade. One idea that I'm playing with right now is to use the cutoffs from the dowels as pegs to hold the frame together. One side is going to fold into the other, that way this thing can be stored away in a closet. But one side is going to be completely stationary. So I could use these to just glue in and make a really tight connection. We'll see how the rest of this goes and how labor intensive this would turn out to be, whether I actually go that route or not. It might just be simpler to drive some wood screws and some glue, but this would be nice. All the rungs are now sanded to 150. They will be sanded to 220 after I put a coat of boiled linseed oil and the first coat of water-based polyurethane. Now I'm going to knock off all the hard edges on the legs. The big corners are now knocked off. It's now time to hit this with a bunch of sanding. While that one dries, I'm now ready to do a quick wipe down of all of these pieces with some mineral spirits. Once that is all set, I can then put a coat of boiled linseed oil on and it will adequately soak in. I just finished cleaning all of the pieces with some mineral spirits. I think a better course of action now would be to assemble the 2 legs by gluing the dowels in place, giving that some time to set, and then I will apply boiled linseed oil. I don't want the oil to have any effect on the glue, so I think I'm better off just gluing it all together now. And then it's going to be a little bit more of a pain to coat it in linseed oil when it's all together, but I think it will be worth it, so I'm going to do that next. Here are all the pieces for both sides. I'm going to do the longer sides first. It should be as simple as putting some glue in each hole, putting one of the dowels in, and then hammering the other one on. So I'm going to put the non-hardwood dowels towards the bottom, which means that they go towards the rounded end. So one side will have 2, one side will have 3 at the bottom, and then it'll be all hardwood up to the top. Sorry about that. I didn't realize until I was already putting the top on that you can't see the top, so I'll back you up for this one. You can already see that you won't be able to see it, so let's just crank you up a little bit. There you go. The glue just needs to dry on those now. They're not going to go anywhere, so I can move them around a bit while I try to figure out what the brace that connects the 2 legs together will look like. From everything I've seen of other Pikler triangles, it's just a triangle brace that is permanently connected on one side, and then it has one leg that's on a pivot. So I'm going to just basically do that. I still haven't decided whether or not I'm going to use wooden dowels to attach one side or not. Now that it's assembled, it might be harder to do because I won't be able to use my drill press. So I'll have to be really exacting with the Forstner bit, or I can just clamp it in place and drive a Forstner bit all the way through. So we'll see what happens. For my brace, I'm going to use this extra piece of cherry that I have. It's not exactly square, but I'm cutting 2 triangles out, so that's not really going to matter. So I'm going to do that now. The board's a tiny bit over 18 inches, so I'm just going to cut it twice at 9 inches. That will give me a rectangle for each side. I'll then just have to knock corners off to make a triangle. So I have this leaning against itself temporarily so that I could figure out what shape and where the brace should sit. So this is about, I guess, what it's supposed to stand like. So I marked out a basic triangle on this board, and then I'm going to just knock it off on the bandsaw because I want it to be overall rounded. I don't want this thing to have any sharp corners. So I'm going to just go a little bit to the right and left of my lines, and then I will just sand down to about where I need to be, and that will be good enough. So it looks like I forgot to record cutting the triangles out on the bandsaw. I just cut out a rough triangle. I fully intend to sand it down, so sorry. Let's just go to sanding, I guess. Alright, those are all roughed out. They look pretty good for freehanding it, and I'm perfectly happy. I've taken all the edges off of them. So now I'm going to clean up any burn marks from the sander, and then I will clean these with some mineral spirits, and then we will mark out all the holes that need to go into this. I have the braces just clamped on the longer leg. I marked it with pencil on the inside of where I need to put this. So now I'm going to glue this in place. I'm going to throw some just brad nails in it just to hold it in place so that I can then try to drill a hole for a dowel. And we'll just see how that goes. If it doesn't look like it's going to work, I might abort and just use some wood screws. But I think a dowel will make it look a little bit nicer. Okay. Alright, that is now mounted. I'm going to give it about 5 or 10 minutes for the glue to set a little bit before I start drilling the hole with the Forstner bit. I'm now ready to drill the 1-inch hole for the dowel to hold the brace onto the legs. I'm going to drill a 9/64 pilot hole because I found that when you need to be really precise with a Forstner bit, especially when you're using a hand drill, a pilot hole makes the bit not wander. So I just picked the bit that is the same size as the tip on my Forstner bit, and that should make it so that I don't have any wandering on the bit. I also have a little piece of plywood to use as a backing That way, hopefully I don't get too much blowout on the back here. It's a pretty soft wood, so hopefully it just tears away. Now is a simple matter of putting some glue in the hole and hammering a dowel in until it is flush with the bottom, and then I will just saw off the top of the dowel and do the same to the other side. And that should give me a nice strong connection here. I now have the Pikler Triangle clamped into its final position. I need to now drill a hole here for a carriage bolt that will be the pivot point, and then I'm going to drill another hole here that will hold a second carriage bolt, but that one will come out and we're going to make a handle for it. So this one will be permanent, this one will not be. This project's pretty light in terms of metal hardware. So I have some 5/16 carriage bolts that will be the permanent pivot point. And then for the adjustable one, I will be using some 3/8/16, mostly because that's the size T-nuts I have, and I'm going to be making the knobs myself. So these will come in handy, and that's it. So I have one carriage bolt mounted. I don't know if I got it on camera. I think I forgot to hit record, but it's mounted. I don't have it all that tight yet because I still need to do the other side, and then I will drill the 3/8 hole for the hand knob. I'm going to hit this again with some 150 grit sandpaper, and then I will apply some boiled linseed oil to it, and then a coat of water-based polyurethane, some 220 grit sandpaper, and then another coat of water-based polyurethane. Just a quick update. I think I've been saying I'm going to use water-based polyurethane on this. Scratch that. What I mean is I'm using an oil-based polyurethane. If you use boiled linseed oil, you would need to let the oil fully cure before putting anything water-based over it, because otherwise it would just be blotchy. I'm using an oil-based polyurethane on this, so this won't cause a reaction. They're both oil-based. They'll be fine together. While those dry, they need about 25 to 30 minutes with the boiled linseed oil just soaking in. Then I'll just hit them with a dry rag to pick up any extra oil. Give them about an hour or so just to let them set a little bit more, and then I can hit it with the first coat of oil-based polyurethane. So I'm going to start cleaning up a little bit. It looks like a bomb went off in here, and I accidentally dropped some mineral spirits, so I gotta clean that up because that's gonna start to do some bad stuff. So there's one good coat on there now. I'm gonna let this sit for about an hour. It says 30 minutes on the can, but that's assuming good relative temperature. It's way colder than it is supposed to be using this. So I'm gonna give it the full hour. Then I'm going to hit it really lightly with some 220 grit sandpaper. And then I'm going to use some of the paint-on polyurethane. That's the same stuff, it's just not in an aerosol can. And that will be a little bit thicker of a coat, and that will likely be my top coat. The Pikler Triangle is now all ready for final assembly. I'm going to put all the carriage bolts back in, and I'm going to put some paste wax on the short legs. That way, when it pivots to be put away, it slides nice and freely. And there it is. Not a difficult build by any means. Could have done it all in a day if I had all the supplies when I started, but I knocked it out in a couple of nights throughout the week, and I really like the way it came out. It's pretty clean looking, and I think it will suit my friend's purposes very well. There are additional things that you can add to these. You can build little like rock climbing structures. You can build little slides. I'm probably going to end up throwing together a slide and maybe a little climbing obstacle for this. Those will be future videos. And yeah, thank you for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to keep up to date with new projects as they are released. And until next time, thank you.